Today the wind is very strong. The temperature is 18 degrees Celsius. But due to the wind, it feels colder than that. Since I established this temple 16 years ago. This is only the second time. It's been so cool in April. Let the weather be. For us, we continue our practice to cease suffering. Cessation of suffering is called Nirodha. There are 5 levels of Nirodha. Cessation by calm meditation, by vipassana, by the noble path, by the noble fruition, and by nirvana. We need to practice. In particular, calmness, samatha, and insight, vipassana. What are their roles? Calm meditation suppresses the 5 hindrances that hinder the development of our mind. Such as sensory desire and ill will. With concentration, the mind can temporarily suppress the hindrances. But to practice deep meditation is difficult. If we have never practiced in the past, if we want calmness, the first step is finding a place that is suitable for calmness. The Buddha taught the monks to stay in secluded places. Secluded meaning no distracting noise. But in today's time it's quite rare. Most places are busy and loud. Noise is an enemy to the first level of deep centration. It can cause the mind to withdraw from concentration. However, when we hear repeated sounds, such as those from the city or from the road, if we don't pay attention to them, then we could be in seclusion, even though it's never quiet in the city. I used to practice in forests, thinking that the forests would be very quiet. But actually, the noise from insects and animals is very loud. If we pay attention to the noise, it can be distracting. However, once we get used to it, we don't hear the noise anymore. So, even our home can become a secluded place. Most natural sounds are not so distracting. Only some unusual sounds such as lightning can startle our mind. But natural sounds from the wind or flowing water don't have much effect. Or they can even help calm the mind. The most dangerous sound is human's voice. Because we can interpret the voice. And the most dangerous voice is from someone we love or hate. As their voice can greatly affect our mind. Other voices we just hear in passing. The heart doesn't waver much. So, during meditation, try not to love or hate anyone. Let go of all sounds. While meditating, don't think of those we love or hate. Just be aware of your breath. If we are in a secluded place, it's easy to be calm. As I said, seclusion doesn't mean no sound. There is sound everywhere. But while some sounds are dangerous to the mind, some are not. The Buddha taught that a woman's voice is the most dangerous sound for men. And a man's voice is the most dangerous for women. However, nowadays a man can love a man and a woman can love a woman. So, I'm using neutral words here. The voice from someone we love or hate. The sound that we love or hate is distracting. If possible, try to avoid it. Otherwise, try to get used to it instead. When we meditate, we can breathe in, bu, out, do. Or just chant Buddha in our mind without linking to the breath. Let the mind stay with something. Chanting Buddha is a thought object. And can be used for calm meditation. If we watch the breath, it can be a true object for vipassana. But if we focus into the breath, it is for calmness meditation only. For example, we can breathe in, bu, out, do, and not care about any external noise. We just hear the internal chanting in our mind. At one point the chanting will disappear, remaining only the breath. Then, the breath will disappear, becoming light instead. At that point the mind will catch on to the light. This is called vitakka. The mind enamored with the light is called vijara. When we realize that the mind has moved to the light, the movement of the mind ceases. Vitakka and vijara, which obstruct the second level of jhana, will also cease. Now we attain the second level of jhana. Next, Be mindful as rapture becomes prominent. When rapture ceases, happiness becomes prominent and the mind enters the third jhana. However, if rapture reappears, the mind goes back to the second jhana. While happiness is prominent, if we're aware that the mind likes and moves to it, the mind will let go of it. Equanimity becomes prominent, and we enter the fourth jhana. Happiness prevents entrance into the fourth jhana. We have to go step by step. While the mind is in the fourth jhana, all physicality disappears, and the mind stays with mental phenomena. This is cessation, Nirodha, by calmness meditation. It is a step-by-step process of ceasing phenomena, and the mind becomes equanimous. There are also levels higher than the fourth jhana. But most of us can't do it, so we don't have to learn it now. When our mind enters deep concentration, the 5 hindrances temporarily ceases. And the mind has the strength to continue vipassana. When we practice vipassana meditation, we have to see the 3 marks of existence. By seeing the 3 marks of existence, vipassana will develop wisdom that correct the wrong views that we previously held. For example, by seeing impermanence, we clear the wrong view of permanence. Ordinary people think there is a true self within us. Especially our mind, we see it as permanent. It is easy to see the body as impermanent. We were young and small. Then our body grew up and became strong. As time passes by, the body gets sick, old, and dies. Everyone has to die. So it's easy to see the body as impermanent. However, the mind is not a physical entity. So it's harder to see this characteristic. If we think the mind is permanent, we can't relinquish the belief in a self, Sakkaya Ditthi. We need to see that all 5 aggregates, form, sensations, cognition, mental formations, consciousness, which is the mind itself, are impermanent, suffering, non-self. Not you, not me, not animal, not human. It's easy to see with other aggregates. But for the mind we feel as if our mind yesterday, last year or even last life is the same with our mind today. We feel there's something permanent inside of us. Which is the mind. So, how do we see the truth that the mind is impermanent? We have to see it arising and extinguishing. I've always taught about watching the mind arising and extinguishing. It has no physicality. It's only a phenomenon that is conscious. We can't see it arising and extinguishing directly. But we have to see the factors that coexist with it. The mental factors. Happiness, suffering. Wholesome, unwholesome fabrications, etc. When anger arises, just be aware of it. See it appear and disappear. Anger arises together with the angry mind. Greed arises with the greedy mind. They arise together, extinguish together. Utilize these mental factors to notice the mind. Be aware of them arising and extinguishing. We will be able to see the greedy mind existing temporarily, then turning non-greedy. Then it could become the angry mind instead. The angry mind also exists temporarily. Then it could become the delusional mind. For non-meditators, the delusional mind keeps repeating for their whole life. For meditators, when the knower mind arises, it discontinues the delusional mind. When we're aware of the mind that goes thinking, the delusional mind ceases and the knower mind arises instead. Then the knower mind is also extinguished, and it could become the delusional, angry, greedy, happy or suffering mind next. Keep watching the mental factors. Because each factor is different. Happiness, suffering. Greed, non-greed. Anger, non-anger. Delusion, non-delusion. Restlessness, gloominess. Conditions are all different. The mind co-arises with these factors. One day we'll be able to see that the mind itself arises and extinguishes. If our mindfulness and concentration are good, we can also see the mind arising and extinguishing through the 6 sense bases. The seeing mind, listening mind, smelling mind, tasting mind, the tactile mind, or the mind that works mentally all arise and extinguish. But this is more difficult to see. To practice simply, just be mindful of the angry, non-angry, the greedy, non-greedy, or the neutral mind. Whether the mind is happy, suffering, or neutral, be aware of it. Finally, we'll be able to see that the angry mind is one entity, but the non-angry mind is another. When our mindfulness and concentration are strong, we can see the mind arising, existing, and extinguishing, with a small gap that separates the old and new mind. The mind arises, exists momentarily, extinguishes. Then the next one arises. We'll see that there's no permanent mind. Each mind arises and extinguishes. Vipassana makes us see the truth of impermanence. We have the wrong view that the mind is permanent. No matter how many years or how many lives, it's the old one. as long as we see it as the same old mind. We still think it is our self and we can't clear the Sakkaya Ditthi. So, we have to practice the way I just taught you. See it arising and extinguishing, being impermanent. Vipassana extinguishes our wrong view that. See impermanent things as permanent. Suffering as happiness. Non-self as self. We can't yet see the suffering mind. We only see it as suffering when it merges with suffering. This is also correct. When it merges with suffering, it suffers. As we practice further, we will be able to see that no matter what the mind catches on to, even to happiness, suffering arises. What we thought to be happiness turns out to be suffering, because it's intrusive and something foreign to the mind. If we're able to see this, our wisdom has developed sufficiently. At first, we thought the mind has to merge with suffering. Then we see whatever the mind clings to, it suffers. We may think that if the mind doesn't cling to anything it won't suffer. As we practice further, the mind will mostly stay as the knower. But we'll see that the knower itself is suffering. And we can let go of the knower mind. It suffers as an intrinsic property of an aggregate. Not in that it has to cling to anything first. This is seeing the truth clearly. And we will let go of the mind. But seeing this aspect so is difficult. This is great suffering, as if a mountain is pressing down and grinding the mind. The mind needs to be in a strong deep concentration to withstand it. To see the non-self characteristic is easier. See that whether the mind is wholesome, unwholesome, happy, suffering. We can't choose or control it. We don't have control over the mind. We can't order it to be happy, to not suffer, to be wholesome, not to be unwholesome. Keep watching the truth. And we'll see that the mind is not in our control. By mindfully watching the three characteristics of the body and mind, we can extinguish the wrong view that the body and mind are permanent, are self, or delightful. This is the task of Vipassana. To extinguish wrong view. With sufficient Vipassana, we will get to the third type of Nirodha. The first type of Nirodha is using calmness meditation to extinguish the hindrances. The second type is using Vipassana to extinguish wrong views. Keep practicing and our mind will have more power. Finally, the noble path will appear. The noble path can't be concocted. It appears by itself once our precepts, concentration and wisdom are fulfilled up to the required level. For the stream enter, they have perfect morality, some concentration and some wisdom. What does the noble path extinguish when it arises? It extinguishes the defilements. At the first stage of enlightenment, it extinguishes 3 out of 10 defilements. You can search Google to see what these are. But the chief out of the three is the belief in a self. By practicing vipassana, seeing the truth of the physical and mental phenomena, we'll be able to abolish the wrong view of a self, seeing the five aggregates as our self as the aggregates, or our self existing outside the aggregates. Regular people have this wrong view. When the first stage of enlightenment arises, it's going to clear this wrong view. Also, it's going to clear our doubt whether the Buddha is real, whether his Dharma can bring us out of suffering, whether the noble enlightened people exist or not. People like to assume that this monk or that monk is a noble person. But this is all just nonsense. We have to practice being mindful, and we can become pure by ourselves. The Buddha didn't allow people to assume which person is noble. So, don't assume that I'm noble. The only person who has the right to assign is the Buddha, and the person himself, herself. The noble one can know by herself how many defilements she has eliminated. Once eliminated by the noble path, those defilements won't come back. When the first stage of enlightenment arises, we will realize we don't have a self, and what the Buddha taught is true. The Buddha is real. The Dharma is real. The Sangha noble people, who followed the Buddha's teaching till they reach enlightenment, is real. We'll realize that the triple gem is real, and have no more doubt in it. We'll also have no more doubt about the practice to achieve purity. Lay people have different practices, but the noble people will know that the right practice only consists of vipassana and calmness meditation. The four foundations of mindfulness will lead us to both vipassana and calmness. Outside of these two practices, there is no other way. We will be able to abolish three fetters. Belief in a self. Doubt in the triple gem. And clinging to rites and rituals. Continue to practice, and the second stage of enlightenment will arise, leading to further weakening of greed, anger and delusion. The third stage of enlightenment will abolish another two fetters, sense craving and ill will. Then, the last stage of enlightenment will abolish the remaining five fetters. The noble path extinguishes the defilements at their root. They won't grow back anymore, unlike calmness meditation or contemplation, where the ceasing is temporary. Defilement elimination by the noble path is permanent. This is the third type of Nirodha. The first type of Nirodha is by calmness meditation, samatha. The second is by vipassana. The third is by the noble path. The fourth one is the result, the noble fruition. At this point it's not extinguishing defilements, but the defilements can't arise anymore. For example, we don't have to extinguish craving, because it can't arise anymore. There's no more work to do. The fifth type of Nirodha is Nirvana. Nirvana itself is eternal, never arising or extinguishing. But the mind that reaches Nirvana extinguishes ignorance in the noble truths. Extinguishes craving, clinging, becoming, birth, suffering. We'll get to see all of these by practicing samatha and vipassana. If we practice and get lazy or get bothered by lust, we're under the influence of the hindrances, so we need more calmness meditation. I always tell monks in this temple to never neglect calmness meditation practice. If lust is getting too strong, we can contemplate the foulness of the body, or contemplate death. Contemplating death is the ultimate move we could make. The world is crazy and chaotic right now, because people don't think they could die at any time. If we're aware of the hindrances, they can't take over and our mind remains calm. There are several ways to calm the mind. One way is to enter the first stage of deep concentration. Then the hindrances are suppressed. But if we can't enter deep concentration, there's another method that the Buddha has taught in a sutra. Where the Buddha taught a king Ajata Satu. The king was very much like us, very busy with worldly affairs. The Buddha didn't teach him to enter deep concentration, but taught him to be mindful of the hindrances. If lust arises, thinking of sensual happiness or worldly pleasure, just be aware of it and it will cease. If thought of hatred arises and we want to hurt others, just be mindful of it and it will cease. If our mind is restless or irritable, be mindful of it and it will cease. There's one specific kind of restlessness called kukutsia. This is when the mind yearns to be good or to be enlightened. It keeps thinking and wanting to improve. And the mind is depressed and gloomy. This is having kukutsia. When doubt arises, if it doubts how to practice, or if suddenly the mind turns gloomy and we doubt how to improve. Just be mindful of it. And the mind that is doubtful or gloomy, not knowing how to practice, will automatically cease. If our mind has thina middha, it has no energy, is sluggish, dull and depressed. Just be mindful of it and it will cease. But sometimes the depressed mind doesn't go away. Because the mind is not neutral, being aware of it with hatred and wanting it to disappear. So, in cases when unwholesome conditions don't go away, just notice that the mind is not neutral, having aversion, not mindfulness. Once we have true mindfulness, defilements and hindrances are immediately extinguished. If we want our dull or confused mind to go away, but we don't notice the dislike, this is missing the current phenomena. The current phenomenon is the dislike. The dullness was already the past. Always watch the present phenomenon. So, I have summarized vipassana in one sentence. Have mindfulness to watch the body and mind, as they are with the upright and neutral mind. Being neutral is very important. If anger doesn't cease after watching it, this is because we're having anger towards the anger. If our mind has lust and doesn't cease, this is also because we want it to disappear, but we're not aware of the dislike. Just know it as it is. So, if we can't enter deep concentration, just be aware of the hindrances and they will cease. The mind becomes calm. Once we're proficient, deep concentration is not difficult. Just be mindful of the hindrances. With the neutral mind, and the mind will be calm immediately. Then, we continue with vipassana, to abolish the wrong view of the three characteristics. Next, the noble path and noble fruition will arise from seeing the noble truth. The noble truth is seen at the time the noble path arises. Its name foretells that it's the truth of the noble ones. Laymen should continue to watch the three characteristics. Once they are seen clearly, the noble truth will be understood. Luangpu Pramote used to explain to me very clearly about the noble path. He said, when Kon Danya gained the first stage of enlightenment, there is one sentence to describe it. Firstly, an I has arisen. This is having the insight to see the actual phenomena. Hence gaining an I. In the second part, the insight clearly sees the true nature of both physical and mental phenomena. The third part is seeing their three characteristics, leading to wisdom, and the fourth part is seeing the noble truth. In the fifth part, a light has arisen. This is the process at the time the noble path and noble fruition arises. It's an actual occurrence. Some people may think it's a metaphor, but it's not. It is really bright, without needing light from the sun or the moon. Keep practicing. At first fight the hindrances. When any hindrance arises, just be aware of it with a neutral mind. And concentration will arise. With concentration, whether mindfulness is aware of the body or the mind, watch their three characteristics continuously. Finally, we will attain the results. We will reach the third, fourth and the fifth Nirodha, which is nirvana. The practice is not difficult but requires perseverance. Be mindful when any hindrance arises. And it will cease. The knower mind will arise instead. The knower mind, samadhi, is the state which the mind is upright, staying with the body and mind without forcing it. With samadhi, the body will be seen as something known, impermanent, suffering, and non-self. The feelings will also be seen as something known, impermanent, suffering, and non-self. We need upright samadhi to be able to see their three characteristics. The texts say that right concentration, samadhi, is the proximate cause for wisdom. However, wrong concentration that makes the mind dull or drowsy will not lead to wisdom. Only the type where the mind automatically stays upright with the body and mind will lead to wisdom. With the upright mind, whenever mindfulness is aware of something, their three characteristics will clearly be seen. Next, mindfulness will look back at the mind, seeing the three characteristics of the mind itself. The new mind is the one to be aware of the previous mind that has just extinguished. At first the mind sees the body, feeling, memory, fabrication and vijnana, the mind that arise at the six senses. The mind can see the mind itself, because it is not a single entity. One mind arises to see and is extinguished. The next one arises and senses that the previous mind went to see. This is how the mind can be aware of the mind. That each one arises and disappears continuously. Keep practicing and one day we'll understand. I have been preaching the overall picture for all of you to see, so anyone at any level can know how to proceed. Since so many people are coming to listen at the same time, I can't explain for each person individually. That's all for today. Maybe it's too difficult. Next, submit your homework.
Question number 1. As I wake up and my mind wanders, I'm aware of it quickly. The aggregates separate automatically. When my mind is too restless, I'll do sitting meditation, emphasizing continuous mindfulness of the object. I see that the aggregates are uncontrollable and my mind is starting to accept the fact. I can see that both happiness and suffering are burdens. When I'm aware of desire, I can let go, but soon my mind attaches again. Overall, my mind is more neutral. but I feel my mind still doesn't have enough energy. Please show me the path forward.
Keep practicing. And when any defilement shows up, just be mindful of it. Notice that aversion is your dominant defilement. You mentioned others but didn't mention aversion. Just be aware when you feel you don't like something. And your practice will improve. Be aware of your current defilement. And also the movement of your mind. Can you sense that your mind has moved outside? Be aware of it.
Question number 2. I've practiced mindfulness of my breath every day since I was a kid. I practice for proficiency in deep concentration. I have mindfulness to see the transitional and uncontrollable characteristics. While in formless jhana, I only see the 4 components of jhana changing and nothing else. When I want to sleep, I contemplate the jhana until I fall asleep. Is what I'm doing wrong?
What you're doing is correct. But be careful with one thing. Don't watch it too seriously, too viciously. Just watch it with your normal mind. Don't make your mind dull. Can you notice that your mind still has dullness? When you exit from concentration, dullness also gets attached. This means your concentration practice has delusion. So, take notice that when you enter deep concentration, delusion, drowsiness are present. And they also comes out from concentration. One must practice the 5 proficiencies for deep concentration. Please try entering concentration. Now exit from concentration. When you exit, you're not yet proficient. Keep practicing. While I'm talking to number 2, not many people will understand what I'm talking about.
Number 3. I base my mindfulness on the moving and breathing body. When my mind strays to think, I'm aware of it. I'm practicing separation of aggregates. I see the body as one thing, the mind that is aware is another. When I hear your teaching that anger is not the mind, my mind is awakened. I have a lot of anger and restlessness. May I ask for your kindness in guiding me with my practice?
If you practice only wisdom development, your mind will be tired and irritable. So, practice calm meditation from time to time during the day. Whenever you have 5 or 10 minutes, not only once a day. When your mind is calm and happy, continue wisdom development by seeing the 3 characteristics of the body and mind. What you're practicing is okay. Number 2, your mind is a bit overzealous, leading to anger. Can you see it? When your mind is overzealous. It is tired and goes dull. Then anger creeps in. Overzealousness looks like good intention, but actually it is the greed defilement. Be aware of it. Right now you're fabricating your mind to be good and soft. Be aware of it. Number 3. Practice for your mind to be with yourself. Be mindful of the ever-changing phenomena. What you're practicing is okay. Be aware when your mind is restless and irritated. Many of those who are irritable tend to have a lot of wisdom. So it's easier to see the non-self characteristic. If you watch suffering and impermanence, it may lead to more aversion. See that your body and mind work by themselves. So they are non-self. Keep seeing this characteristic and your mind will be more calm.
Question number 4. I practice by breathing in Bud, breathing out To. When my mind goes to think, I see that it's uncontrollable. In daily life, I try to be aware when my body moves or when my mind goes to think. I see a lot of defilements. I am ashamed of unwholesomeness. I don't want to do wrong to other people, especially through verbal means. I see my body and mind as separated. I see that everything comes and goes. Please give me some advice.
What you're practicing is correct. But back off your mind a bit. You're lifting your mind like this. Look at my example. Can you see it? I copied your state of mind. It is too much. Just let your mind be normal. Now is not normal, you're fabricating it again. Don't fabricate your mind. We want to be aware of the fabricating mind, and not fabricating something ourselves. Now you're fabricating your mind to be still. Can you see it? Just be aware of all fabrications, whether it's fabricating something good or bad. You're stuck with good fabrication. You want to be good, so you try to lift your mind higher up. Don't fabricate it. Just be aware of it. And your mind will be free from it. Overall, your mind is good, soft and bright. Number 2. Can you see that? You're overfocusing a bit.
Question number 5. I practice breathing meditation for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. I can separate the aggregates. I base my mindfulness with chanting and with the body. I see anger arising from the middle of my chest and then disappear with varying durations. I see impermanence characteristics. I see the scariness of samsara. Please give me advice for further development.
What you're practicing is okay. Your mind has developed a lot. Continue practicing for your whole life. The more you're aware of suffering, the more happiness you'll get. This world is full of suffering. But keep practicing for your mind to be calm and happy. Number 6 is also practicing well.
Question number 6. I practice walking meditation and chanting Buddha in my daily life. I still get lost for a long time, having lust, anger, delusion, and still sometimes act according to them. I try to watch the phenomena continuously despite difficulties. Am I able to separate the aggregates?
Yes, you can separate the aggregates. And you're able to do it naturally. Keep practicing. Give more attention to Dharma practice. And only give attention to the world as necessary. Set our goal in life to have less suffering. Until finally we can be free from suffering. Don't get too immersed with the worldly affairs. What you're practicing is good. Your aggregates have been cleanly separated. But don't intentionally fix your mind like that. It will only be samatha. Let your mind work. Whatever fabrication arises, just be aware of it. Don't fabricate it yourself. Now you're fabricating tightness by yourself. Can you see it? Now you're curious. Be aware of the arising and extinguishing curiosity. From now on, whenever you don't understand, and curiosity arises, just be aware of the curiosity itself. Watch your current phenomenon, which is curiosity. Don't think back to the phenomena that already disappeared. You're doing well. But you're setting your mind too strongly.
Question number 7. I'm a worrisome person. If I watch my breath, it's too restless, so I do walking meditation and watch my mind. I can see anger but not much lust or delusion. I try to watch desire but can't see it much because my desire and worries don't go away. Please give me some advice.
As I said earlier, when we see defilements and they don't go away, it's because we have a new defilement that is the dislike. If we have lust and we don't like it, that lust is already the past. The dislike is the present. Watch the present phenomena. Nothing is everlasting. Whether lust, anger or ignorance, all phenomena, even wholesome ones, arise and extinguish. Just stay with the present. Don't set up your mind strongly. Otherwise you'll be tired. The way good people feel. Now the condition has changed. And your mind is relaxed. Just let it stay relaxed like this. If you try to control and make your mind tight, it's going to be tiring and leads to irritability and stress. You're doing well. Your aggregates have separated, but you're holding on to your mind. Let it go, let it work naturally. Now is a little better. Just be aware of it. If you hold on to it like that, it is only calm meditation and wisdom can't be developed. Today we have many avid meditators. This is encouraging.
Question number 8. I chant Buddha in daily life and do sitting meditation. My mind always goes thinking. I'm aware of it and think that it's impermanent, arising and extinguishing. After that, my mind stays still. If my mind is stubborn, I will open my eyes immediately. I have the desire to be good. Please give me some advice.
The desire to be good is greed. And slows the development. Just continue to be mindful of the current phenomena. Be mindful with the relaxed mind. Whether the phenomena are good, bad, happy, suffering. They are all the same. Arising and extinguishing. Everything arises and extinguishes. Nothing is under our control. Those with strong anger and wisdom should watch that nothing is under our control. Just watch relaxingly. Whenever anything arises or extinguishes, don't search for a specific phenomenon. If your mind is empty, watch your body. And when your mind goes thinking, be aware of it. The mind has the tendency to think and fabricate all the time. Meditators are not looking to change its nature. Whenever the mind thinks and fabricates, just be aware of it. Whether it fabricates good, bad, happiness, suffering, or tries to not fabricate. Don't fabricate anything. Just be aware of fabrications. Almost all meditators fabricate their mind to be good, to be empty, or try to not fabricate, which is just another fabrication. When we have mindfulness, we can see the working of defilements. After we sense something, defilements may follow. We need to see that everything arises and extinguishes due to its cause. Nothing is ours or ourself. But if we want to be good, we fabricate our mind, such as lifting the mind up, or making the mind drowsy. The best mind is the normal mind. Whenever anything arises, Just be mindful of it. If we fabricate our practice, it's going to be tiring and suffering. However, most beginners start off like that. Yearning to be good is better than yearning to be bad. To be good is trying to control the body and mind. And to be bad is letting the body and mind act according to defilements. Controlling one's body and mind is erring on the side of self-control, but is a good fabrication. Letting the body and mind act according to defilement is unwholesome, erring on sensual indulgence. Meditators try to fabricate wholesomeness, or try to not fabricate, which is just another type of fabrication. To fabricate wholesomeness is better than unwholesomeness. But if you're not aware of it, it slows the development. Just be aware when the mind fabricates something. Whether holding on to the mind, or pushing the mind up or making the mind smooth, etc. Number 2. Can you see that you're fabricating drowsiness? It's the same mistake. As you exit from concentration, if your mindfulness can't catch up, delusion comes out as well. Be aware of the fabrication, and one day we will be free from it. Being free from fabrication is called visankhara, which is another name of nirvana. That is all for today.